There's someone I used to see, but she don't give a damn for me. But let me get to the point. Let's roll another joint. Turn the radio loud. I'm too alone to be proud. And you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels to be me. People come, people go. Some grow young, some grow cold. I woke up in between memory and a dream. So let's get to the point. Let's roll another joint. Let's head on down the road. There's somewhere I gotta go, and you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels to be me. My old man was born to rock. He's still trying to beat the clock. Think of me what you will. I've got a little space to fill. So let's get to the point. Let's roll another joint. Let's head on down the road. There's somewhere I gotta go, and you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels. No, you don't know how it feels to be me. You don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels. No, you don't know how it feels to be me.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to Crush Live Call-Ins. I am your host here, Bart Hansen, and happy Labor Day to you, as it's September 7th here in 2021, but we are going anyways here on Labor Day, and that's partly due to the fact that in 2 weeks I'm actually going back east for a couple of baby showers for my wife, so I will be visiting home. And we won't be doing the show in 2 weeks. So we won't be doing the show on September 20th. But we're doing the show today. So, as always, if you want to get on the show, you need to pre-submit your hand at bart@crushlivepoker.com. bart@crushlivepoker.com to pre-submit your hand. That email, by the way, might actually change. I might start a dedicated email address, like a submissions@crushlivepoker.com or something like that. So that might change. But we always pre-screen the calls, and if you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, you will always get a personalized response from me. And if you subscribe, you actually get to submit a hand or one question per week that I will respond to. I've actually started recording like 1 to 2 minute individual responses to people's questions, not so much hands. So that's a added benefit as well for being a Crush Live Poker subscriber. And of course, check out the free Crush Live Poker podcast that comes out on Wednesdays. You can do a search over in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. What a great, unbelievable night on Friday night. Had a great time. Truly, I am saying this, commentating with Nick Vertucci. I usually don't like doing that big game like with somebody else because it gets crowded with the audio. You know, the audio will get crowded, but he brought some really, really good stuff that I'm going to talk about on the podcast this week, the subscription podcast. I'll probably put it on the free stuff as well. I'll be in the live chat as well. Want to say hi to everybody. Looks like our mod, Mike G, is in there. So let's get started here on this Monday. And let me take a look. We got 4 calls here. So I think that the first call here that's up is going to be from David in the 318. Hello, David. How you doing?
Yeah, it's DW.
Okay, DW. I'm sorry, DW.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
how you doing?
Good.
How you doing, DW?
Well, I'm a little nervous.
You're
Talking
nervous?
to the king of live poker here. Going to discuss a hand.
There's nothing wrong with that, buddy. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know what
Yeah.
that noise is in the background there, but are you outside? You outside or something?
Are you not hearing me good?
I hear like a lot of static in the back. Well, maybe that might be better now. Okay. All right. So, all right, Dave, you got a hand for us here?
Yeah.
Oh, DW. Excuse me. DW. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2-5.
Okay.
1,000 cap. MGM Detroit. Pre-COVID.
Okay. Place I
You're
have
nine-handed.
I have never been to MGM Detroit, but interesting. Okay, so 9-handed, yeah.
Yeah, nine-handed. It's early. It's like 6:30 in the evening. And
Yeah.
a lot of times the 2-5 games don't even get started until 5 or 6 o'clock. So when I
Okay.
sit down with 1,000, the guy to my immediate right, who looks and acts like a thinking player, has got 3,500 in front of him.
Okay.
And so I'm a little wondering what's going on to start with. But like I said, the guy looks and acts so far. I mean, I'm still in my first orbit of play.
Okay.
He looks and acts like he knows what he's doing.
Okay.
Hang on a second. I'm in some online tournaments. I got to sit out on it. There we go. Okay. So I sit down with 1,000. I win a couple of hands right away, and I've got 1,450 in my stack now.
Okay.
The villain has 3,500.
Okay.
There's 3 limpers in the field,
Okay.
and it gets to the villain who's in the small blind, and he raises to 30.
So 3 limps and villain. So small blind raised to 30. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm in the big blind with
Mhm.
Jack 10 of hearts.
Okay.
I think this guy on my right could be doing this with a lot of hands, just trying to take down the dead money out there. So I raised to 100. Thought about calling for a minute, and then I'm like, no, that's just going to let those other guys in. Then we're going 5 ways.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
So does it get folded back to the small blind?
Yes, and he calls.
Hey, DW, if you don't mind me asking, just out of curiosity, how old are you? Or you can give me an age range.
Yeah, 55.
Okay. Well, all right. Like I said, some people get on me because I say, I'll stereotype different players, and sometimes I'll say, not that 55 is. I mean, I'm turning 42 here in a couple months, but sometimes I'll say like older players are are less studying. But I know you've been a subscriber for a long time. Love the 3-bet. Love your line of thinking here, with the Jack 10 of hearts. So, okay, small blind call. So the pot's like 200 and change, right? Maybe like 215, something like that.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
And flop comes out, ace of clubs, 7 of hearts, 3 of diamonds.
So ace of clubs, 7 of hearts, 3 of diamonds. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Villain, like I said, he's thinking, seems like he's a thinking player, and he takes like that nice 10 seconds in between each action. He gives it his nice 10-second pause, and he checks.
Okay.
With the backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and, you know, we're the 3-better, I'm thinking I can bet, represent an ace, whatever, but his board's dry, so I down bet, bet 80.
Okay. I'm assuming he calls.
Villain calls, yes.
All right, so it looks like we're going 375 to the turn. I mean, right now I like the hand. I think you're definitely going to c-bet this board, obviously, right? A7-3. You got some back doors. You're the 3-better. Sure.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then we get a really nice turn card, 8 of hearts.
Okay, 8 of hearts. So you pick up a straight flush draw. Gut shot here with the Jack 10 of hearts on ace 7-3 with the 7 of hearts. Turns the 8 of hearts. You get Jack 10 of hearts. Great.
Right.
Yep.
Villain in his perfect tempo, and pause checks. And I figure, you know, if he's got an ace, he's calling no matter what, and I could probably get some pairs to fold. I don't know what else he's floating with on that flop. So I bet 250, about a little under 70% pot. What do you think of that?
So 70%. So you hear about 250.
I thought to go even bigger. I thought to go pot.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, what is that accomplishing? I mean, if he's got an ace, he's going to call no matter what. And if he doesn't have an ace, he's probably going to fold to 250. So I don't know.
I think that's actually a good line of thinking. I mean, I don't necessarily know what the optimal solution is, but if we work what you just said out, I think that, for example, maybe we don't think about this deep. I think it's probably more efficient to use pot to say like an over pot sizing. If, for example, you had picked up like a flush draw, but on the high side, like if the turn was a king or something like that, where there was like another over card to a 7, you know, a hand like jacks would have a really hard time continuing on, you know. But here, with it being like another low card, I don't know what folds out to pot that doesn't fold out to 2/3. So that might be a pretty efficient sizing here when you think about it, right? You know what I'm saying? So it probably has to do with the texture on the turn. So I can get on board with it. He calls again?
Yeah, I like that though. If an over card, a bigger card would have come out, then you could put pressure on more hands.
Sure.
With the bigger bet. I like that. Thanks. All right, and then he calls. Again in like his perfect flow and pause and tempo, and now I'm really feeling like he has an ace. I just really, you know how you start to feel like as the hand develops, you know what somebody has. I just really started to feel like this guy's got an ace. I'm in a little bit of trouble here.
DW, I want to interject here for a second because I always like to bring in some of the live chat. So this guy Z17 says, if you bet pot to 130% pot, you'll fold out most aces. I don't know where you're playing, Z17 Seattle, and this is a live game. You got to be fucking kidding me. Anyways, all right, let's move on to the river. Just had to interject.
All right.
Yeah.
So the river was interesting.
Yeah.
This is where it gets good.
Yeah.
We get the 3 of hearts. So
all right,
it makes the flush, but it pairs the board.
Right. Okay. Small line checks, I assume.
No. In perfect flow and timing, he jammed for effectively, for my stack, 1,020 effective into 875.
Oh, I thought he check raised the river here when I was reading the email. All right, so he just opened rips. He opened rips here.
Yes, on the river.
Well, I mean, obvious. All right, so this is actually, I think, easier than what I thought this was going to be, which was you bet and he jammed on you, which would be a much tougher decision. So obviously he can have ace X here of hearts, right? Because that's represented. But I mean, there are even some flushes here that you beat that could be in this spot here, like I don't, like, I mean, it's interesting that you say you raise out of the small blind. You wouldn't think that like 5-6 suited here, or like 4-5 suited would be in there or something like that. But I don't know anything about this guy. Who knows? Maybe, I mean, once in a while, like he could have 3x here and he was going to try to represent the heart. I'm never folding here to an up front jam. I thought that this was going to be a check raise on the river all in. When you make a backdoor flush here in a 3-bet pot, the guy's he's not supposed to have aces full here, right? You'd think he'd 4-bet you. I don't think he would play aces full here as an open rip, check call, open rip. So, I mean, really, like, you're just looking at, okay, I mean, I guess he can have some of these like backdoor broadways. I mean, you bet 80 into 215, but I mean, I'm trying to think, like, if I had king jack or king queen of hearts on a7-3 and you went 80 into 215 on an ace high board, I don't even know if that's really a call. You know what I'm saying?
That's really optimistic.
Yeah, with just pure backdoor hearts. So I mean, this is ace x of hearts or nothing, right? I snapped this. I'm sorry. What did you end up doing?
Well, I tanked and my first reaction when he jammed, I kind of looked over and said, "What do you have, quads?" And he was very stoic, and I guess a lot of Crush Live Poker came out because I just started thinking, well, what does this guy have, and what can he have? And I'm like, did he flop a set, And I think if he had a set of sevens or the set of threes, as you say so often, we probably would have heard from him by now.
Well, there has to be
raised the turn or the river.
There has to
the turn or the flop or the turn.
It's not all. I mean, he's not always going to do it, but there has to be a frequency. And also too, going back to pre-flop, is he raising to 30 over limps with threes? Maybe he's doing it with sevens, right? I don't know. Tell us what happened.
Okay, so it's kind of weird because as I'm thinking through it, then I said, well, would he have like just the stiff ace of hearts?
Turn that into a bluff, maybe.
And I started thinking like
weird.
ace queen with the ace of hearts, ace jack with the ace of hearts, and he's trying to get me off of ace king or ace queen.
I mean, I think that would be a very poor. I think that would be a very poor play by him. But I mean, I guess it's possible. Like those hands are way too strong, I think, to do that. So what ended up happening?
What ended up happening was after a very long tank, called.
Okay.
And he turns over ace of hearts, king of clubs.
Wow. So.
And I turned over my flush, and the whole table, half the table went bananas. They're like, "What the fuck? You got a flush? It took you that long to call? What are you doing? What are you doing?"
So DW,
like, well, what do I beat?
Let me give you some parting thoughts here, DW. Here, I think the villain probably thought that he was value betting here, and it's quite interesting. Usually when he has the ace of hearts here, like I don't think he's turning this into a bluff with like ace jack with the ace of hearts. I actually think that he's like, all right, this is great. Like I'm going to get this guy to call with an ace here. I'm also protected. Let's say I'm the villain DW against you. I'm protected from you actually having the nut flush here. And also too, maybe once in a great while you fold out ace king the same hand, right? Can't you have ace king the same hand? I mean, I think
that's what I kept thinking afterwards, was that he was trying to get me to fold the same hand.
Right. And I think
get called by a weaker ace.
I mean, if he's got ace king with the ace of hearts and he can pull this play and get you to fold the same hand, because it sounds like you went deep in the tank with a backdoor flush, then that plays.
I almost folded.
Then that play's not a bad play at all by him. But like betting ace jack or ace queen with the ace of hearts to turn, I don't know. I just. That seems a little bit overly although at the same time I'm saying someone considering folding. I don't know. It just seems a little bit optimistic. But DW, thanks for the call. Good luck at the tables. Thanks for being a subscriber. I really appreciate it.
All right, Bart. Thank you.
Right. That's pretty cool, that guy. I wish his phone connection was a little bit better. I don't know if we're going to be able to. We'll have to do some post-editing, see if I can take some of those pops out. Sounded like he was on a machine typewriter. But interesting free roll bet there, guys, from ace king. I mean, it's I wouldn't necessarily say it's turning into a bluff. It's like probably trying to get the guy off a chop, I think is really what the deal is here, which you can do in certain types of situations. All right, who we got next here? So everybody's on the computer. All right. Daniel here is second up here. Daniel, you have a non-hand call. Is that correct? I just want to make sure. Is that right, Daniel? Non-hand call? Daniel? Daniel, we can't hear you, so I'm going to have to put you back on mute. I see you're connected. Maybe you don't have your mic set up. You just put yourself on mute. Hey, Daniel? Okay, Daniel, what we're going to do is why don't you disconnect and you can try to call back the phone number from the email or try to reconnect. I'm going to go another caller and then I'll get you next, okay? Okay, yeah. So let's go to Chris here, who is up. Looks like it says in the Virginia area. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Bart. Can you hear me?
Yep. How you doing?
All right. Good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. So in this hand, we're playing 5-10 at the MGM National Harbor. It's a 2,500 cap and it's 8-handed.
All right. So let me just reset up here.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Chris has an interesting non-hand call too. If he can connect again. All right, so 510. You've called before, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Because I've always asked you about Jesse the suit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a Henderson last time.
Oh, that's right. That's when you with the ace jack, right? Right when you
Yes.
had the ace jack of spades. Yeah. I remember. All right, cool. So all right, 510 MGM National Harbor. Okay, cool. Yep.
All right. So under the gun opens a 30.
Effective stacks, by the way.
Oh, sorry. 3,700 effective with him. I'm the effective stack, but
Okay.
under the gun and myself will be end up in the hand.
All right, so 3,700 effective. Okay.
Yep. Under the gun opens a 30. Low jack flats, button flats. I'm in the big blind with queen of diamonds, queen of hearts, and I 3-bet to 210. Under the gun calls, and the low jack and button both fold.
By the way, I have to say, what's your name again? Chris.
Chris.
This is a great way to do a call-in, by the way, where you just give in the action. Like, I mean, the last call is kind of fun, but that's kind of the goal with where I'm going to go with my new email, my submissions email, where I'm going to sort of have a form or at least a link to a form in the FAQs. Like, if you can imagine when I get literally 50 emails a week, especially from people from non-subs in like a 1-2 home game, where the hand is 3,000 words. And I'm not kidding about that sometimes. I'm not exaggerating. So, all right, 3,700 effective, under the gun to 30, low jack calls, button calls, you 3-bet, red queens to 210, under the gun calls, and they fold. Okay, great.
Yep.
Awesome.
So just under the gun is a very solid aggro reg. So
Okay.
that's the only information I have on him.
Okay. Sounds
The
good.
flop is jack of diamonds, jack of clubs, 6 of spades, and it should be 480 effective.
480 in the pot, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, 480 in the pot.
Jack of club. Repeat the flop again, please.
Jack of diamonds, jack of clubs, 6 of spades.
Jack of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 6 of spades. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
And I bet $120.
All right. So hero, of course, was out of position. Bets 120. So very small, right? You are very deep on Jack 6-6 rainbow. Okay.
And then he ends up flatting. So I guess I thought the flop was pretty standard. I'm just going very small on this board texture, this deep versus a tough opponent with basically my entire range here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like it's it's obviously, again, it's interesting to note because these are hard to, whether you're trying to find optimal, because you got call in there. I mean, the one thing that I'll say right off the bat here, I mean, I know you have 2 queens, is that by betting small, I think I don't remember here towards the end, but just keep in the back of your mind here that your villain can very, very easily have a very large volume of hands here. Like, I don't really even know when you take 25% sizing here, he might be continuing with almost 90% of his range, because when I take a look at when I take a look at a standard UTG open, if I put myself in villain spot and I open to 30 and it goes call and you 3-bet pretty large out of the big blind, and there's 2 people left to act and I defend, I'm going to have a range of hands there. And I don't know how much of that range folds here because, I mean, maybe some of the suited Broadways that don't have the back door. So if it's
Right.
Jack of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, Six of Spades, it's like the Queen 10 of Hearts.
Yeah, wait. How I noticed in the YouTube, you actually have the hand wrong. It's Jack of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, not the Six of Clubs.
Oh, Jack of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, Six of Spades.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I
and
think it's okay. I mean that I'm thinking about that a little bit differently, but I still think it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
similar concept though in terms of the back doors because I don't think any pair folds. Maybe see he really shouldn't be in here with like deuces through fives anyways.
I'm sorry.
So.
I'm actually a massive idiot. I got the hand mixed. It's actually the eight. It's actually Jack Jack eight, not Jack Jack six. I'm sorry, which does affect it a little bit. I apologize. I just realized it as I'm watching the hand history. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So let me try to do this over again. Here.
Sorry
for
about
the
that.
edit. Okay. So Jack of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs, Eight of Spades. So you decide to bet 120. Okay. So it's a rainbow board. Obviously, the board is connected here. He can have some Jack X. He should have somewhat of a strong range here when it goes 30, call, and he defends to your 3-bet. He still is probably going to have a high, I would say, continuing range of that sort of call to the 3-bet here. Probably pairs below whatever pairs that are defended here, but I don't even know if he's going to have fives and below would fold off.
Yeah.
And
First of all, I don't even know if he opens fives under the gun.
Right. So, yeah. But I mean, like the, Broadway draws that contain a backdoor. I mean, maybe not hearts, right? But
So
Broadway draws.
are you saying like would you be more in favor of like a 2/3 sizing or just a check? Or I'm confused. What do you like? Here?
All I'm saying is that your opponent's probably going to end up with a high volume of hands when you use this size.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair
All
enough.
right. So 120 and he calls, right?
Yeah.
So 720. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Turn is the King of Spades, so it puts a backdoor flush draw on the board.
King of Spades. Okay.
Yep. So I'm thinking that this is a good card for my range, but obviously bad card for my hand. And I kind of want to pot control. I don't want to play a huge pot out of position with a marginal hand. So I check, and under the gun bets 450.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I was going with this because I'm starting to remember now. Just like little details of your email. So like I said, because of the small bet sizing and because he's going to end up with a large volume of hands to your small flop sizing here, you're going to have to call down a lot here because he's going to have some, floats. He's going to have some hands that are going to need to sort of turn into a bluff. This is kind of a larger sizing for sort of value/protection, and you wouldn't expect...
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than, like, for example, if the turn's a deuce, where he might start taking some of that pair range and betting for the smaller sizing for protection, like nines, tens. I don't know why he would do that here. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
And also some of these backdoor Broadways, they pair up here. Now, he will also have some ace highs here, though, too, that maybe he thinks needs to start bluffing that were sort of backdoors, like... it's interesting, like ace 9 of diamonds, I'll give you, or something like that, right? Does that start a bluff here on turn? Doesn't have a whole lot of showdown value. I'm just saying he's ending up with a large volume of hands. Okay, so I'm assuming you called, right?
I do call, yeah.
All right.
And the river is the deuce of clubs. So complete brick. I check, and there should be around 1,620 in the pot. And he bets 1,250.
From UTG bets 1,250.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that jumps out at me here. This is not necessarily polarized to Jack X or nothing. What about Ace King?
Well, don't you think he forfeits Ace King pre?
You mean because there are people behind him? You mean?
Well, that, and like I'm also very aggressive, and I would assume he wants to get some value with Ace King pre.
I mean. Yeah, there would definitely be a partial, but I have to tell you, like, you've made the 3-bet probably large enough. I don't know. I mean, the stack sizes weren't necessarily relevant from the people behind, but Ace King off from under the gun versus a big blind 3-bet. I mean, I know you're saying you're aggro. That's usually not a 4-bet. Now, obviously, it's probably flatted more than 4-bet, probably even at this stack depth. But yes, he's incentivized to drive those people out behind. But that's kind of what just jumps out of the top of my head, here right off the bat. You think he is polarized here to Jack X plus?
My thinking was this is basically Jack plus, maybe Ace King if he flats it, but I didn't honestly think he had a lot of Ace King here. I thought he was going to call with like maybe 25% of his Ace King combos here. But would he really take this large of a sizing with Ace King when I can easily have a Jack here?
25% of his. You're saying that he would only call pre with 25% of his Ace King combos.
Yeah.
Why you can easily have a Jack here? I mean,
in theory, like I could probably, but I mean, I guess, and in honesty, I probably don't have a lot of Jack X here.
I think he has more Jack X than you because he opens with a higher volume that I'm now, and obviously, it really depends on the percentage of, his 3-bet defense. But you keep saying you're aggro, and obviously it is a squeeze spot because there's dead money, but you are incentivized to call with a lot of sort of medium strength hands like Queen Jack, Jack 10 off, something like that. I don't even know if you squeeze with like Jack 10 suited, you might just, take a call here. Yeah. I mean, your sizing is interesting in the sense that this is what my thinking is here. If you think he's polarized to a Jack or say like aces here, most likely your small sizing, if you think that the guy knows what he's doing on the flop, means that he ends up with so many floats by the turn that he's got enough bluffs here for you to call if he's truly polarized here at the end.
Okay.
I mean, that's about as simple as I'm going to say
it. Fair enough.
So what ended up happening?
I ended up calling, and he had sixes, which is why I got confused. I wrote the hand history down at the beginning. I apologize again for that.
No worries. So villain has sixes. Okay,
yes.
So that's another one that we actually didn't mention at the top that might actually be... You will see some of these small... Now, it probably shouldn't be defended pre, right? With two people behind, I would assume. I mean, it's probably pretty close. I mean, it is live poker, right?
Yeah.
But what I would say is that it's not surprising. This isn't like totally maniacal for some people looking at this on paper, because what you'll see sometimes is a reflection of some of these smaller pairs that just go really way down in showdown value. They start to get bluffed because off of this action, you can see when you check the turn, there's really literally no way that sixes can win, right? I mean, almost no way. So, he starts a bluff with it. I mean, I had mentioned hands like ace 9 suited with a backdoor that starts a bluff, queen 10, something like that. But again, I think what you can take away from this hand, and what a lot of people don't understand when they just auto down bet because they see everybody else and they're like, oh, it's the theory, then you have to understand that your opponent will end up with a high volume of hands across the turn. And then if something happens where you think he's polarized on the river, you're probably supposed to be doing a lot of calling because he's probably going to end up with a good amount of nothing. He has
Fair
enough
enough.
bluffs, right? If he is truly polarized, I think that's that.
So if you think he has most of his ace king, do you actually prefer a fold here?
I think you bring up a good point about the river sizing. Like maybe it's not consistent with ace king. Obviously, any ace king that's flatted pre should be calling on the flop, right? Any ace queen,
obviously.
You'd have to sort of do the combo workout, but I think I tend to agree that it's somewhat suspect sizing, I would say, on the river to include. And then, like you had said before, too, there's got to be a frequency of 4-betting off. So, with one king out there, there's 12 combos of ace king possible left. But if you start to go down the line of how much is 4-bet off, right? And say it's 50%, say it's 50%, and then how much is taken from this sizing of the 12 combos of ace king that is possible, you might only be left with logically 2 to 3 combos, right? That go right down the line. So you say all the ace kings might be only 2 or 3 combos, right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
All right. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Again, guys, if you like what you see, definitely hit the like button. And if you want to submit to the show, you can do so by emailing me at bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com. It is Labor Day. We are going here on Labor Day. And that is because we will be skipping in a couple of weeks because I'll be going back east to the baby shower for my wife. We're actually doing 2 baby showers back east. And yeah, and like I said, I will always read them. And I'm going to continue on with, like I said, if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, unbelievable night from Hustler Casino Live. I'll be sort of recapping that. Be sure to check out the free Crush Live Poker podcast that you can subscribe to on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and I'll probably include my little recap of Hustler Casino Live in the free one from this week too. For the subscription podcast this week, I'm in the middle of a multi-part series on the definitive guide to small stakes exploits. I'm actually going to do something else this week. I'm not done with the guide, but I did get to play a nice session at Hustler 551K cap overnight after commentary, and I want to do a hand review. I want to do a hand review podcast because there were some doozy of the hands. All right, so let's go. Let's try here. Let's try. So I assume that this is going to be Daniel. Is this Daniel? Is that right?
Hello?
Yeah, is this Daniel?
Yes, this is.
Okay, great. So yeah, we couldn't hear you on the on your computer.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
My microphone wasn't connected, I guess.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so Daniel, non-hand thing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what's your question?
So I emailed you with a question about actually including poker experience and history in a resume. I'm a junior in college studying industrial engineering.
Yep.
So it's coming the time for me to start applying for internships.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was cleaning up with my resume, I kind of realized that most of my resume was just like smaller jobs that I've worked throughout high school and college, and I didn't feel like that kind of stuff held much value to an employer.
Uh-huh.
And throughout, the past few years or so, I've spent tons of time playing, studying, reviewing hands,
Right.
And getting all the benefits of learning this kind of stuff throughout my life. And I feel like that's something that would stand out in a resume, but I felt it's also something that's very difficult to include without
some explanation behind it, maybe.
Right.
Well,
Right. And I feel that poker is also something that doesn't necessarily have a positive reputation to people outside of it.
So let me ask you the question. Well, so let me ask you a question. So you say you're applying for internships. What is this after your senior year, basically, right? When you graduate, or between the summertime into your senior year?
After my junior year, yes. So
Yeah,
the summer before my senior year.
So what are you applying to? Engineering firms? Like what kind of internships are you applying to?
Correct. Yeah, within the industrial engineering.
Industrial engineering. So that's that. I'm not super familiar with that field, industrial engineering. What I would say, like if you were saying, like, yeah, I'm applying to some sort of finance internship, having to do with possibly trading or working at even necessarily like an accounting firm. I know I would absolutely include it in that field for sure. And I know that it does sort of require a little bit of an explanation, but I don't think that there's anything wrong if you do decide to include something like that, to just write. I mean, obviously I haven't made a resume in like forever, but you can add just a little thing. I'm not talking about making the resume long, but you could, put in bold, please ask for explanation, something that highlights, hey, professional poker player would be happy to explain, and then I don't know if you get to do a little bit of a summary, like, I think that this adds to my value, because I think it certainly does, but it does obviously need an explanation behind it. What exactly is industrial engineering?
There's a lot of like data analytics and stuff like that in it. So
well, then
that's kind of where
then I think that depending on, here's the thing, also too, like, because I'm not overly familiar with the field, so a couple things coming off the top of my head, like when you apply to an industrial engineering firm, or the person that's doing the hiring, like for the internship, is it an HR person that knows nothing about the field? Or is it an industrial engineer that's sort of in management?
Well, I guess there's definitely a broad, there's a lot of ways to go with industrial engineering, and I'm going to be applying to like a wide variety of internships. But I would say that like a lot of the stuff that I wanted to include, relating to poker, aside from just like the math and problem solving and stuff like that, was just like I felt that would better display like the lessons I learned as far as like thinking logically and self-discipline and time management and like managing yourself, as opposed to saying that after school I had refereed a couple soccer games or something like that.
Did you referee soccer games, by the way? Because I used to as well.
Did.
That's how I made a lot of money when I was in college and high school, baseball umpiring, basketball and stuff like that. No, I tend to agree. It's an interesting call, because what I would say is that I don't know how competitive it is to get interviews specifically in this field. So I would definitely, when you do get an interview, I would definitely try to bring it up in an interview. Whether or not you want to include it as a line item on a resume, I think for this particular one, it's probably a little bit close. You might actually have to do more research specifically and possibly include it on resumes to certain companies and not on others, with the variable of who's actually doing the hiring for your internship, if you can find that out. Like, is there an HR department? Is it a big company with an HR department? Does this company, so let's say that it is, trying to do your own research about like, is the HR department entirely independent, the one that's going to be reviewing it? Because if that's the case, then it might be a negative. Whereas if maybe if you're interviewing more of a boutique firm where you think that somebody in analytics is actually going to be looking at your resume, then it could stand out. Right. But I would try to bring it up. I would try to bring it up in an interview, but you'd have to gauge the situation though in the interview too, with the same type of sort of filtering. Like, am I talking to an HR person, or am I talking to somebody that is actually making the decision making, that has an experience in analytics? Obviously, sometimes it's going to be hard to know, right, who that person is, in the back. I mean, I come from a standpoint. I don't know if say professional HR people think about this in this way, but whenever people ask me about college nowadays, now I'm not obviously like reading resumes and taking resumes, but like I've always said now, and I went to private school, I went to private college, I went to Syracuse, right? I mean, back then it was only 29,000 as opposed to whatever it is now, 70. But the GTO way really to do higher education, it quite possibly you are in an exception, because you are actually in a specialized field where you're learning a skill that can come out at the bachelor's degree level, at the 4-year degree level, and actually like go right out into the workforce and actually have a valid skill, right? Like in engineering, that might be, one of the few exceptions. But in terms of like, if somebody didn't know what they were doing like a liberal arts degree or whatever, even finance, whatever it is, I did like broadcasting. The GTO way to attack higher education is to go to community college for 2 years, get your prerequisites out of the way, and then transfer to the best public school in your state. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a luck of the draw where you live. Like, if you lived in California, it would be unbelievable if you had the grades to get into Berkeley. UT, down the street from me here in Austin, there are some state schools that are better than others, but mostly, especially at the local level, if you go to the best public school in your state, that is going to be well respected. And I would say it could be 100% of the states in the union have direct programs that allow you to do this, where they might even they might even give people who are coming out of community college preferential treatment for admittance as like an interstate type of transfer from community college to the public school. The reason why I bring that up is that if I was an employer and I saw somebody, let's say I lived in California and I saw some kid like went to LA County Community College for 2 years and then graduated from Berkeley or graduated from UCLA and had like decent grades, I would be extremely impressed. I would want that guy, especially if I was hiring for something in finance. It would be the first thing that I would ask. I would say, why did you go to community college the first 2 years? And he could give a response that was, I went there because it was the best financial decision. I didn't want to be riddled with debt, and I knew that I could get the prerequisites out of the way, and it just, it made the most sense. That would be a top candidate for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it doesn't necessarily roll into what your particular situation, but I think you need to gauge who the hirers are. I think that it can be a positive. It might also be a negative if you're going straight into corporate, like dealing with a corporate HR type of person,
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a good point before talking about the whole community college thing when you said asking for some sort of explanation, because the wording is so tricky. Is what I was struggled with when I was trying to include something like that. I felt it's you only get a couple lines to
right.
There's only so much space in my resume to put that in, and
right.
The wording has to be perfect.
Well, obviously, and you have to be, and you need to choose the words wisely as to, it's not just, oh, I play poker tournaments, ha ha ha, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
right.
why are you putting this in? How does it lend
Absolutely.
into your field? Like, if it was finance, I would highlight it because of like the quantitative, analytics, and that it has a direct parallel. Especially if it was some sort of like trading internship or something like that, making decisions based upon equity. I don't know if there's that parallel in your field. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with it, but that's what you want to really to go with. Like do the research on the firms you're applying to, find out who is going to try to do your best to find out who actually is going to have the first look at the resumes. Maybe it'll be worth it. Maybe it won't. If you leave it off, you're going to make a split second. You're going to make that decision when you get an interview. If you get an interview at a place where you've left it off, you're also going to make that decision at the time whether or not you want to bring it up. So I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bart. Appreciate it.
All right. So that's always fun to do non-hand calls. But I do strongly feel that definitely is the best way to go nowadays, for sure, when most 4-year degrees don't mean anything. Now, with this guy's case, he has a degree that actually, I would say, one of the few fields coming out as 4 years where, okay, this is a profession, but I don't know, 80, 90% of 4-year bachelor degrees mean absolutely nothing. And you see these people even go to some of the better private schools. Like once you get out of like maybe the top 5 or 10, like Ivies and, like Stanfords and stuff like that, where it's mostly alumni connections anyways. Like even if you're going to like even a top tier private school like I did or whatever, like, a top 40 school. And now you're sitting there with $350,000 in debt after 4 years with like an English degree. And you're struggling to you get hired for like a $55,000 a year job. I mean, that's like indentured servitude. You're going to be riddled with debt the rest of your life. There's just no point. If you want to spend money on higher education, on those types of non-specialized fields, all that matters is the graduate level. So you'd spend money at the graduate level. Don't fucking do it for undergrad. That's for sure. All right, last call here. Let's go to Chad here. Hello, Chad. How you doing?
Hey, Bart. Hey, good.
Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll just jump right in.
Sure.
2-5 game, Seminole, Hard Rock, Tampa, 1,000 cap, playing 8-handed.
A place that I keep saying when people call in these hands, I want to go there. So 251 cap. I have never been to Tampa. Never been to Tampa.
It's great.
Maybe I'll take in, a Tom Brady game like in 3 years when he's still playing or something like that, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
By the
he's
way,
in a wheelchair on the field. Yeah.
No. Hey, by the way, I think Tampa's coming to New England this year. I think like week 3. It's going to be great. So 251K cap. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty late. It's about midnight. This is actually from Friday night, and I had just jumped in the game. We're playing 8-handed.
Mm-hmm.
I was planning on playing for about an hour. I had just done a 20-40 mixed game and was kind of exhausted, but I don't know, felt like playing some 2-5. So Yeah, table is 8-handed, under the gun limps.
Okay, stack
folds
sizes.
around to the
Stack
cutoff.
sizes.
Oh, sorry. About 1100 effective
Okay.
with villain. But I mean, it's varying. Obviously, there's short stacks at the table, but
Sure.
main villain is 1100.
Okay.
I've got 1100. We're about even.
Okay.
All right. So under the gun limps, cutoff, folds around to the cutoff, who raises to 20. Button flats. I'm in the small blind with ace of clubs, ace of diamonds.
Okay.
So obviously a mandatory 3-bet. I go to 100 and folds around to the cutoff, who flats the 100, button folds. So we go heads up to the flop, pops about 230 ish.
Okay, so this is a double flat, right? No, it's not. No, cutoff.
No.
Cutoff raised over the top of limp. All right, so
Yep.
under the gun limps, cutoff 20, button calls, hero, aces, 3-bets to 100, cutoff. Fold, call, fold. So your heads up. So the pot's what, like 125 ish, something like that, right?
Yeah, 230. 230.
Oh, excuse me, 230.
Yeah,
230.
yeah, about 230.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have any info on cutoff other than like he seems capable. He's a younger guy.
Mhm.
Everybody else at the table seems like they were playing pretty short stack. He was the only one that had any kind of decent stack in front of him.
Mhm.
I had already 3-bet him like 3 times, so he probably viewed me as pretty aggro, but I happen to have it every single time. So but he folded the other time. So not sure if that plays in, but whatever.
Okay.
All right, so we go to the flop. Flop is 8 of hearts, 4 of hearts, deuce of diamonds.
8 of hearts, 4 of hearts, deuce of diamonds.
Hearts, deuce of diamonds.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
8-4 deuce.
Mhm.
So I bet 75 here, and that's kind of a question point. Should I be going larger? I think obviously I've been experimenting a little bit with smaller sizing, but I don't know if this is the right spot for it.
If you're asking me directly, I think it's going to be a function of how often you think that this guy can have 4s and deuces here. So we'll look at a couple of inflection points here too, in the sense that if you were probably looking at optimal pre-flop, yes, cutoff opens all pairs and probably defends with all pairs. Here the variable is that under the gun limp, so is cutoff ISOing 4s and deuces. Is he going to call here with a 3-bet? If no, then you would definitely be allowed, I think, to go larger. With a caveat to that, though, again, is that I don't know if your opponents know that they're supposed to be The reason why you are allowed to go larger is because in an optimal world, your opponent is also playing optimal, and he has to call down. So you want to get the most amount of value, right?
Right.
So that's the theory of it. Would I go larger here? I tend to go larger, especially you don't need protection with a whole lot of aces. By the way, usually the combo of overpair that is checked in a 3-bet pot the most on a board, and I don't even know if it will really be checked here on a disconnected board like this would be aces with the ace of hearts. But your hand doesn't need protection like jacks, queens, and kings. And it's interesting too with aces because it cuts down on the ace highs that your opponent can call with. But this reminds me of an earlier call here from today where I don't know the skill level of your opponent, but it seems like your opponent's going to end up again with a high volume of hands here if you take this sizing. So, you're going 1/3. It's not quite as extreme as going, say, 25%. So, it's not a mistake. I'm sure that you can take your entire range on this board for this sizing. Whether or not it's going to yield the most amount of money, I would tend to go larger. Okay, you go 75. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and that kind of plays in later too, I think, because I intentionally went smaller, so I think it affects some decision making later. I had to keep in mind that I went small on the flop, so that means my opponent can arrive at the river with a lot more hands. So the turn is pretty close to the worst card in the deck. It's the 5 of hearts.
Okay, so he calls, right? So
he calls, right? Yeah, he calls the 75. So pot's like 380.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Turns the 5 of hearts. Obviously completing the most obvious draw. I don't think 6-7 is here. It might be 6-7 suited, maybe. Ace 3 suited obviously gets there as well, but I don't know. So I think this is an obvious check? Question mark.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So I check.
Mhm.
Villain bets out 225.
Okay, so that's like, what is that, like
Pretty large.
60%,
Yeah,
something like that?
2/3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay. I mean, obviously you're gonna call. You also have a wheel
Yeah,
draw
I
too.
call.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
obviously. Yeah, so I call.
So now the pot's 830, right?
830, right?
Mhm.
And the river is the jack of clubs.
Okay.
So I obviously didn't want to see a heart. The jack's pretty much a blank in my mind unless he's doing this with jacks, with the jack of hearts maybe. So I check again, which I think seems obvious. And villain pretty quickly jams for the remaining 700. And I hate this spot. So here we are. And I don't like check calling.
Well, I mean, I've obviously I don't know if are you a CLP sub?
Yeah, I'm a sub.
Okay, so I don't if you've been following the exploit series.
Yep.
I did a 2-parter on one of the most important, probably the longest exploit, which was, I think it was 13, about don't check call the river at the small stakes. But of course, there are reasons to check call the river, which isn't to induce a bluff and to value on some of the time. But the reason why I say don't do that at 1-2, 1-3 is because the frequency is so low. But I mean, here, I'm not saying you're gonna. We'll talk through whether or not you should call, but checking the river, and if you're going to call, yes, of course, it's a check call. If you're going to get to showdown, how else are you going to play it, right? So
Right.
The thing I hate check calling the river, in this case, I think it's irrelevant, right? So this is what I would tend to say about this is that, yes, the small sizing leads your opponent to having more volume of hands. More volume of hands, across the turn, right? Like if he were to defend, and again, this is why sometimes these things go haywire. Like, I don't think, especially with the button calling. Now remember pre-flop action, right? Under the gun limps, cutoff opens, button calls, and now you 3-bet out of the small blind. I don't know how many offsuit aces the cutoff has here. The reason why I'm saying that is because one of the primary bluffing types of hands that, even I would do here would be like ace X with the ace of hearts. So you start to think,
Right.
well, what are those hands? Okay, maybe he flats with, ace king with the ace of hearts, ace queen with the ace of hearts. He's probably not going to do this. If he has ace jack with the ace of hearts, he doesn't need to do this, right? Because you river to
Right.
jack. If he's not in there with ace 10 off, probably. So that's a factor. And then the other thing too is that, I still, I haven't been to Tampa, but I've been to Jacksonville, and I would still lean towards overfolding in these scenarios, because even if the guy ends up with a high volume of hands to your sort of small flop sizing, I still don't see guys have the balls to do this enough. Like we just know that in the general population at this level, this spot is way under bluffed. And what I mean by that is that they're not finding the right hands to continue with, to know that they're supposed to be bluffing their entire stack off, right? Like for somehow if, I'm trying to think, like let's say he had 10-9 of diamonds, okay? 10-9 of diamonds, right? The board's 8 of hearts, 4 of hearts, deuce of diamonds, right? Is he going to run this bluff with 10-9 of diamonds? It could be very well one of the hands that he's supposed to do it with.
Right.
Would he? At 2-5 in Tampa?
Doubtful.
So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm getting at here. Now, at the same time, you are getting 2-1.
Mhm.
And one of the other things that I will look at too is that when I get into these close spots, is there any value hand that he could possibly be doing this with that's worse than yours in this spot?
Right.
I'm asking you.
I think so. I think he can certainly do it with kings and queens, probably. I think
queens might be a little bit optimistic. Kings,
it's probably optimistic. Yeah. Kings, I think maybe kings with the king of hearts because he blocks, the flush there. I think I kind of thought through that too. Like
now
kings,
remember,
I think, make sense.
but remember though too, again, there's another scenario here too, though, is that I don't know what the button stack was, right? You guys are saying you're 1100, but there's an added variable. On the cutoff, I have kings. I open, you 3-bet in the small blind to 100.
Yeah, the button had like 400.
Okay, I was going to say, the button's already called behind me, so doesn't that want to make me 4-bet kings off more?
Yeah, right? I agree. Yeah,
so,
and I kind of thought that too. I dismissed kings a little bit
so,
of Mickey 4-bets.
So it's hard-pressed for me to find any value hand that's worse than yours that goes this line, which is actually good for us in the decision-making process. Because when you start to stick in some value hands that they could be taking that are worse than ours, it actually becomes a harder decision, if you follow me.
Well, and that's I kind of treated it as, I feel like he's pretty polarized here. And I mean, I think that term's overused, but I do think that because yeah, I dismissed kings. I dismissed the other overpairs. So I thought it was, and I don't think he's doing it with ace jack. He's not doing it with, basically any jack X. He's not, I think it's probably 2-pair plus, probably actually more like sets plus.
Well, there's really no 2-pair, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's not getting with 8-5,
you also
eight.
you lose to ace 3 suited too. I mean, now I'd take a look back at the suits of my hand here too. Mm-hmm. And well, actually, it doesn't matter because there's no pairs out there. But sometimes it's going to be either 1 or 2 combos of ace X suited, depending on what's out there. So I mean, ace 3 of hearts would have been the nuts on the turn anyways, right. And then there's ace 3 of spades. So there's that. You had talked about 6-7. If he's any type of player, ace 3 obviously should be taken for stacks. That's not a flush. 6-7 obviously should be taken for stacks. If he's going to slow play sets, those should be taken for stacks. Same line, really. Flop a set of 8s, 4s, deuces. If he defends pre with 5s, he's going to call your flop bet, right? With some backdoor straights.
Right,
so that should be taken. So there's all the sets are out there. There's a lot of combos of hands that beat you here. Flushes, straights,
all the
flushes, straights, and quite possibly all 5 sets. All 5 sets, which is 3 combos of each, if we include jacks at the end here too. So quite possibly almost 15 sets, another, maybe 6 straights of the suited variety, and whatever flushes he defends with. So there's a lot of value here that beats you. So you don't have the ace of hearts in your hand. The general population underbluffs this spot. Are they finding the 9-10 of diamonds for stacks here? Kind of makes me want to fold. If there's no worse value here, is probably what my line of thinking would be here.
I went through, I think I went through a very similar line. I tanked for a long time. It was probably one of my longer tanks, 5 minutes or so. And I mean, the table was getting a little antsy. I apologized several times, but I went through all of those. And I even talked through it and I said, man, I really wish I had the ace of hearts here. And I was just watching him. I don't know. It's, I felt like I was pretty, I hate going to the mat with 1 pair. It sucks because they always have it here, I've found, but I don't know. I ended up making the call.
Okay.
I felt like he was pretty uncomfortable too. Like I don't put a lot into live reads. I played a lot live, but I mean I don't think of myself as an expert at that, but he did look uncomfortable. So I don't know if that factored in. I think it probably weighted a little bit. I tend to think those things make a close decision maybe, but
so what's the result?
So I was good with aces. I talked through it. I put in the call. I flipped it over because I also have the opinion that I just if he's bluffing, I don't want to make him like feel bad or something.
So he said nice call. Is that what he said? Nice call.
Yeah, he said nice.
Okay.
Yeah, he said nice call. I flipped over the aces.
And then just one thing to add.
I mean,
so you never know. You never found out what he. Just one thing to add to that too. And I've done entire videos on this too. Is that I think that's the correct play for you to do. I think that a lot of low stakes to mid stakes players, they think they're gaining some sort of information by the combo of bluff I think that's ridiculous. I think you should fast roll your
Agreed.
hand. I'm also going, and again, I can point to a lot of high stakes players. If you see their behavior, you will see them mirror my thoughts. To add along to this too, because I had done a video on running it more than once on Saturday, and we had sort of talked, there was a lot of different situations over the last week. There was something that was very, very interesting that I saw go on Friday night too, which I'm going to discuss a lot in my podcast quite a bit, is that Andy and Garrett started running it twice on Friday against the lineup that they were playing against, which is a parallel to the situation of fast playing from up front in this given hand. And of course, the reason why it's a parallel is because they get it. The table was unbelievably soft, and they were going to do whatever the rec players wanted, even if 99% of the time they usually only run it once. I was actually Nick and I would talk about that. I was actually very impressed that they started running it twice. Because obviously it wasn't to decrease variance, that's for sure. You know what I'm saying? They were running it twice because, okay, these guys are giving money away, and these guys want to run it twice. So we'll run it twice. Yep. Just like if Garrett made this call and Mickey said good call, do you think Garrett's going to wait for Mickey to roll over his bluff so that he can learn about the bluff combo that Mickey has?
Exactly.
Pause there and think how ridiculous that sounds. So you never found out what he had, huh?
I did, and he made a comment when I had said the thing about the ace of hearts. Like he made a comment that he's like his heart sunk because he knew I had aces then, and he's like, oh, I just knew he was going to call. And the table was pretty surprised. They were understanding that it took me so long, but I still felt bad. It was a long time, and I just felt like, and I called it in because I'm like, I don't think,
dude. I think it's close. I think it's close either way. I wouldn't fret over it. It's an interesting hand just to think about it because, like I said, I think it probably is a polarized spot, but there is a lot out there that beats you, and I don't know if the general population, like I said, finds some of these bluffs. But the other thing I will add though too is that you also don't ever have to worry about some hand that's turned into a bluff that's ever obviously worse than yours. Like sometimes when we're thinking about calling with ace high, and when it doesn't make sense, and you might accidentally lose to a bluff. Like I don't know if you heard the previous caller where his opponent was bluffing with sixes. Where sometimes those low pairs are turned into bluffs. But on this texture, a low pair wouldn't be turned into a bluff. Like threes would just be checked back if it was taken right on the turn for protection, right? So, of course, you beat threes. But I mean, the point that I'm making is that like you're not going to have that. It's going to be nothingness here, which is quite
It's like you said. I listened to that podcast about that where you like call with ace high and you call with king high, you accidentally lose to ace high that was turned into a bluff or something. So
right.
Yeah.
Anyways, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Bart. Yep.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Like I said, I want to say happy Labor Day for you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the show. Hope everybody's been like barbecuing or something like that. We'll be back as normal next week. And then we'll take the week off. I will be playing on the Lodge on Saturday. So Saturday the 11th, I just got confirmation of that. And so you can check that out. And I'll be playing on the Lodge big game in a couple weeks too. But the Lodge is about to open their new room, so that'll be interesting to see. So I'll stick around a little bit in the live chat. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
You never was around, but you grew up tall and you grew up right with them Indiana boys on an Indiana night. She moved down here at the age of 18. She blew the boys away, it was more than they'd seen. I was introduced and we both started grooving. She said, I dig you, baby, but I got to keep moving on. Keep moving on. Last dance with Mary Jane. One more time to kill the pain. this town again. Well, I don't know, but I've been told you never slow down, you never grow old. I'm tired of screwing up, tired of going down, tired of myself, tired of this town. Oh my, oh hell yes. Honey, put on that party dress, buy me a drink, sing me a song, take me as I come, cause I can't stay long. Last dance with Mary Jane, one more time to kill the pain. I feel summer creeping in, I'm tired of this town again. There's pigeons down on Market Square. She's standing in her underwear, looking down from a hotel room. The nightfall will be coming soon. Oh my, oh hell yes. You got to put on that party dress. It was too cold to cry when I woke up alone. I hit my last number, I walked to the road. Last dance with Mary Jane, one more time to kill the pain. I feel summer creeping in and I'm tired of this town